and welcome to our video again.
Oh, God. Okay.
Alright, so we are discussing the individualism versus social responsibility questions. The first one is, what is the definition of freedom?
I think it all depends on what sense of freedom, like political freedom, social freedom, like...
Literal, like, you can leave somewhere freedom?
Or you can just do whatever the heck you want, no consequences, like... I think it all depends.
Probably means the social freedom to be able to be who you are, pursue what kind of religious practices you want to do without being reprimanded.
Have any kind of gender role that you want.
Yeah.
Just like being able to be you without any stereotypical judgment.
And like in some religious practices, being able to like go anywhere you want without any kind of male escort or anything.
Or men being able to do what they want without being considered feminine or non-masculine.
Yeah.
Alright. 2?
Yeah, the second question. Does social responsibility impede the rights of an individual? I don't think so. I think society does require us to provide, like, back in a certain way, you know, to work a job and to not kill each other.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of wrong. You know, I don't think that impedes on personal rights. I think a standard that society holds isn't something that, oh, it's holding me back, and the, you know, in the sense where it's like, it's, everything has a limit at which you have to work, or you have to put in part of your own, you know, whatever you're doing in order for something to thrive and for things to work. In the same way where a whole bunch of cogs have to turn together the same way in order for a machine to work well. And so I don't think society impedes individual rights. In fact, I feel like it more enhances and provides opportunities for the exercise of individual rights.
The only other thing I can think of would be very specific things like the freedom of speech. Social responsibility kind of has the expectations of you to be polite, like in public, whereas in freedom of speech you can't argue that you're allowed to scream the F word in public. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Miss Maring's over there, Miss Bing.
That's right.
Hello. She did the thing.
Her eyes in here.
Alright, number 3.
What are society's expectations for mothers?
Mothers to have children?
And help raise
Yeah,
them.
to have children, raise them, clean the house.
Cook.
Yeah, for women, or for mothers,
I like cooking.
it's definitely make sure the children are healthy, that the clothes are washed. Now we're starting to get out of that to where you have more of the stay-at-home dads and the stay-at-home moms, and the moms are going back to work, but it's still, that's a very small majority versus the ones that say, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom.
The mothers still kind of get, like, scolded for it because they're like, oh, well, you're not taking care of your children, and, you know, you're not doing this and that, so therefore your child's going to be corrupt, and it's like...
There's a lot of pressure on the moms for the kid to grow up right or perfect. Going on to the second question, it seems like the expectations for fathers are actually to be more emotionally and physically and mentally strong for their families, which a lot of times can lead to, that's
depression.
another question.
Well, no, but we can tie them in together.
Yeah. It can lead to a lot of bottling up emotions, which is actually unhealthy and very bad for self-discovery.
It can lead to more mental health problems for the father, and I think it may in some cases even lead to violence from the father because he has to bottle up all these emotions, and so he may end up leading to domestic violence in an extreme case, but...
Which goes against the other expectation for fathers in society to be able to be physically strong enough to protect their family, where sometimes the mom is the, excuse my language, but the badass that has like martial art training or knows how to fire a gun, like Brittany.
No, I think the whole thing with dads being the ones that have to bring in the bacon, it sort of makes it hard to break those stereotypes.
Yeah.
I know this is going to sound great. I recently read a study in Psychology Today, and the rate of married people, those that commit suicide, the rate for the males is higher than the rate for the females if they have kids.
That would make sense.
Because there's so much stress that they have.
So I think both, like, expectations are really hard because the mother's expected to do all the housework and then the father has to go out and he has to, you know, do that hard work, and it's like there's no it seems like there's no balance almost.
And with the mother's expectation for having to raise children and not have like pets, for example, if the mother is expected to have children and to care for those children and to do everything for those children, maybe the mother wants to be some kind of scholar, which is going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, whereas if she has children, she won't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, that's also not, I don't think that's entirely true. I mean,
No.
I have an aunt who's a lawyer and they have a daughter and they're adopting at the moment. So
Well, it depends.
it does, but it's because it depends is that there's still the option. Society isn't, and it also depends on the societies. In China, they have a strict rule on how many kids you can have, and they make the gender roles very obvious.
Yeah.
In our society, that is mendable, but at the same time, if you're going to speak from like a biblical standard, I think men and women are also kind of made for those roles, but they're not made for the entirety of the weight of those roles. I think too often we take on the entire responsibility of a burden when it's not, and I mean it's not ours to carry. They are supposed to lead and they're supposed to be strong because God made them that way, and sometimes they're stronger in different ways than in the ways that society thinks they should be. That's one of the reasons a woman complements a man, is oftentimes they're meant to help balance each other out in that way. That was a sub checking of us.
We're behaving.
We promise.
Kind of.
So I really think it obviously depends on your view of it, but I don't think society itself holds such a strong standard, at least for sure not in American society, because they have changed those views so much and they've made so much leeway for you to be able to make that personal choice. I don't think it's expected as more as it's more accepted for a woman to be a mom, but at the same time, physically and biologically only females can be a mother in the area of reproduction like that, and I think they're wired that way to love and to nurture, and so like society may have like maybe stricter ideas of it, but I also think the way that we're made falls into that as well, and we tend to make it harder on ourselves.
Yeah.
We
So-
take on more than we can.
Do we have another question?
The society's expectations for fathers we covered. Number 5, can a person contradict these expectations and still be a good mother or father? Wow.
Definitely.
Hi. Look at that. We just,
Oh, yes.
just hit that. Yeah, for sure.
It is certainly okay for a father to be emotionally
Open.
open and present.
And I think that's better for a family environment. I think it's best for both parents to be open and to show emotion. I think it's a good example for children, but it's also healthy for like the marriage relationship and for expression. I mean, it's proven that communication and openness with how you're feeling leads to better marriages, more long-lasting marriages. It leads to a better and more like relaxed home life when it's known that we can freely express ourselves, and that it's a good thing to do. We don't know what they're doing over there.
It's Hannah and Ian.
Hannah and
Sorry.
Ian, so.
So I think women can provide, and I think both parents can provide. I mean, I think it's very easy.
I think definitely, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, take Grey's Anatomy, for example. You have
Connection to
Meredith Grey, who is a top surgeon like her mother, and she's still a great mom.
Yeah.
Even though Derek's now dead. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched the show in a long time.
Thanks.
So,
But basically, yes, it is okay for the
she's
mother
a
to
great
provide.
mom. She's got 2 kids,
Yeah.
and she still spends a lot of time with them, even though she's putting in 50 hours at the ER.
I think roles can definitely be reversed to where, I mean, maybe even to where the mom is the breadwinner and she's kind of more emotionally bottled up, or I should say the mother takes on the father's expectations, and then the father takes on the mother's expectations. I think that can kind of work vice versa too.
Yeah.
I think people are wired different ways. No one's gonna fit into a cookie cutter mold no matter what. There's always gonna be someone who's gonna be some slight variation or difference from what's gonna be expected, and it's okay to be different from that as long as it's,
Not hurting anybody.
yeah, as long as it's a thriving difference,
Yeah.
you know?
You know what? With all this said, if you do fit into those societal cookie cutter or societal expectations,
that's still fine.
That's still okay.
As
You're
long
okay.
as you're not changing who you are to fit those, and you understand
and as
that
long
you
as you're
can
in a
be
healthy
different,
family environment and everything.
it's good.
Did we cover everything?
Nope, there's two more. Do society's expectations prevent a parent's individual growth? It can if they think they need to fit into that mold.
Yeah.
If you're acceptance of the fact that you can be different and that the way that you do things works, as long as a parent you're still providing for your children, you're still taking care of them, they're still feeling nurtured and listened to, because that really is one of the most important things for children. As long as that's still being provided for them, it's okay. And I think societal expectations and views are only harmful to a person when the person feels as though they cannot fulfill them, and thus they're inadequate. And a feeling of inadequacy leads to so many different things, from depression to suicidal thoughts, and not knowing who you are identity-wise and trying to change yourself in so many ways that there's no longer a you that can function.
Well, I think a lot of that stress is due to the tendency to conform to an idea.
Yeah.
And so once you conform, it's really hard to get out of that sort of like ditch to become and ignore society as a whole and do what you want to do.
Yeah, that is kind of hard, because we're kind of raised from the beginning or some people are raised a certain way from the beginning to act like this. Like some women are raised to be like, oh, you have to be a mother, you can't have a job, you need to find a good man that supports you and your family. Or men are taught, you need to be the working man, you need to provide for a wife, and
which can work out well when you're not putting yourself under so much stress that, oh my gosh, this is exactly how I need things to work out. I mean, there's plenty of examples of couples who both work and have kids, or of times when the father may be in a season where he stays home and the wife works, or the wife works the higher paying job than the husband does,
or there might just be a single parent.
Yeah,
exactly.
That also works too.
I know that.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. I think it is fine as long as a person doesn't allow the need to conform to change her or inhibit their ability to love and express that love to their children and to their family. When it starts, leading into, addictions or bad tendencies or, outbursts of rage or something, that's when it's bad. But I think it's good when it's still functioning, and not just functioning as in like, oh, it works, but as in you're taking care of, you're taking care of the kids and of the family, and the home's running well, All right, last question. Are society's expectations of parents outdated in today's world?
Oh God, yes.
No,
It really depends.
I think it is, because
women aren't expected to stay home anymore.
It
They're
definitely
just
depends.
They still
on
are,
where
they
you're
aren't.
at.
It's kind of
my grandfather, he expected my mother to stay at home and raise me and my sister.
honestly.
She went back to school and said, screw you.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, yeah, I think that today's views on it are outdated. I'm going into a field where I'm the outranked one. I'm a woman in a man's job.
Well, okay, think of it this way. We still have maternity leave because that child needs the maternal care that only the mother
Also
should
paternity
provide
leave,
to get that
Yeah.
connection. Like, maternity leave is a good example of a way that it's not necessarily outdated because it's kind of necessary. And in other countries, they have even longer maternity leaves for years at a time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's outdated. Because
Some aspects are.
Well, here's the thing.
I think it depends on how strongly you stick to women stay home. I don't know. I don't see that often. I see women staying home as a choice, not as a, I can't get a job.
I
or
get to go
can't
off
do it.
work for months? Oh.
Well, no, even in the sense of like staying home with your
And
children.
not having
There-
a job.
Yeah, there's an opportunity that you could take that, given, financial income is supportive enough for a family, but not all women do because they don't want to. A really good example of that is, personally for me, my mother, she worked full time as I was growing up, and then when I was 7, decided she wanted to homeschool myself and my brother. Didn't work for like 3 years, and then decided, you know, hey, you guys are ready for public school again. We went back to public school, and she picked up a part-time job, you know, and she works, but she doesn't have to work. She stays home, but she doesn't have to, you know, and I think it's really up to an individual.
Yeah, there's
whether
absolutely nothing wrong with choosing to be a housewife. If that's your choice, if that's your doing, and if that is what you think is best for you and your family, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't have some patriarchal wad, I don't know, like telling you have to stay at home because you're a woman and you're stupid. No, you can choose to do that, to nurture and to take care. Sometimes houses are a lot of work.
And like sometimes
Well,
there's soccer
I
dads,
also
too.
think that that women are still kind of expected to. I mean, like, even though it's not as extreme. I mean, like, personally, my dad and my stepmom, they expect me to have kids. I mean, my mom doesn't, but I mean, like, I'm still expected to marry and, you know, and still have kids and still be a mother. Like,
but you can
Just
be a mother
father.
and have a job, and I don't think
Yeah.
society imposes a view of you must stay home. I actually see less and less of that. So I don't think it's outdated to think that it's good for a mother to stay home with children, and because it is so much a choice and not, you know, an impediment on it, you know, like, oh, you want to work? Well, it's gonna be hard. It's not. I don't
that's
think
kind of like the old, like, 1940s, 50s.
yeah, and I don't think society holds that.
Not as
at
much
all.
anymore. I mean,
I don't think it's a standard for mothers to stay home. And because of that, I don't think society's outdated. If society was so heavily influencing it, if it was outdated, we would see more mothers at home than
Or being forced to be home.
yeah,
Yeah.
than in
I
a career,
feel like
or
I'm
it looked
saying-
down upon for a woman to work if she has kids.
Because now it's more
Well,
optional.
Like, for me, going into forensic anthropology, I know that, just from, like, emailing other forensic anthropologists and talking with them and saying how they've done in the workforce, they found it really hard because going in as a woman, you're the weaker side. Yeah, you're the weaker of the two genders. And so when you go and you're going to a dig or you're looking at a dead body, they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know it was going to be a woman. They're like, so is there a problem with that? And they're like, oh, well, we just thought you'd be a little, like, grossed out by it.
Well, I don't think that reflects society's view of parenthood.
Well,
I don't think
maybe not parenthood, but definitely.
Well, that was the question.
Okay, there's also, let's switch to the men's side for now. With the father's expectations of, like, I feel like maybe that aspect is outdated, the father being expected to be, like, this macho and, like, emotionless, like, I'm tough, like, that's outdated because you see so many more sensitive dads now.
Yeah.
It's more acceptable to see a father cry and not have the children be terrified that their father doesn't know what to do in a situation.
Or that he's gonna
People are realizing now more that it's okay to be human. It's okay for, like, even parents make mistakes. And realizing that now as teenagers is very important because we make mistakes just as much as they do.
But, like, as far as society standards for, like, parenting, I don't think it's outdated. I think it's
Conforming.
it's just conforming. Yeah. It's changing along with our human changes. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's outdated. I think it's okay to be like, you know, it's good for moms to stay home, but if you don't want to, that's fine. You know, and it's good for dads to be supportive, you know, to be the backbone of the family, but that doesn't mean never showing emotion. I think the interpretation of what people think is expected of them is, I think it varies person to person how they interpret a societal standard, and the way they interpret that affects the way, you know, they act it out, or, you know, try and follow through with it, or completely deny it and be different from it. So I think it is very strongly on, like, a personal basis and what you think a societal standard is. I don't know. I don't think it's outdated.
All right, well, we should probably wrap this up because she's going to have quite a heck of a time watching all of this.
Yeah.
Nearly a 20-minute. Thank you for watching. We had some very good points. Good job, you guys.
We miss you.
Yeah.
See
Feel
you
better.
later.
I love you, Miss Bean.
You're supposed to do it. You're supposed to do it.
I'm gonna hold your shirt.